Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the Azure Envision webinar. I hope everyone is able to hear me right and is also able to view my screen.
Yes, Swati, all good.
Perfect. Thanks, Girish. So I'll start with my introduction. My name is Swati Srinath, and I am a part of Ingram Micro Azure team handling Western Canada accounts. And it's been almost 3 years in this company, and my role is to assist partners identifying Azure opportunities, help them upsell, transfer, and migrate to cloud. And I'm also responsible for handling and assisting partners with programs, promos, and incentives from both Ingram Micro and Microsoft with respect to Azure. That's about me. And I also have Girish Sharma on this call with me. Girish is our Azure pre-sale solution architect. He has over 15 years of experience in cloud technical consulting and brings in a wealth of knowledge in Azure infrastructure. So moving on, what exactly are we going to discuss in this Azure Envision? So this is a new style workshop for all our trusted partners who are enthusiastic about knowing what cloud is, eager to understand the cloud business, and also looking forward to accelerate their business with Azure. So the main goal here is to educate our partners about cloud best practices, different customer environments, and also showcase Azure deals from start to finish. So here in this presentation, we have included 3 customer scenarios, and Girish will help us all understand the cloud, Azure cloud approaches available for these 3 scenarios. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat, and Girish or I will be doing a Q&A session at the end of the call. Um, so customer scenario 1 talks more about Azure migration, and customer scenario 2 is more about the security and Azure hybrid deployment. And customer scenario, we're going to talk more about the AVD, Azure Virtual Desktop implementation. So before I move on to the actual customer scenario, I wanted to highlight about our amazing professional services team. So this is an in-house Engram Micro team. They help us with any proof of concepts that your customers want, and all the migration services like on-prem to Azure migration or pay-as-you-go direct to CSP migration. They also help you with discovery and assessment to provide a total cost of ownership on Azure. So they do work on a project basis from start to end. Please do feel free to reach out to me, or if you know who your sales rep is from Engram Micro for more information, and the team is happy to assist you with that. So that being said, let me move on to customer scenario 1 here. So we have customer Contoso Inc. Contoso Inc. is a small-scale company running Windows Server 2012 Active Directory as well as a file services on premises. They are looking to move these resources to cloud. They've recently completed assessment using Azure Migrate Server Assessment and got the below recommendation. So for Azure Active Directory Server, this is the recommended instance. And for file server, this is the recommended instance with 8 GB RAM and 1 TB SSD. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen here, and I'll hand over the call to Girish to explain how we can look at an Azure approach for this. Over to you, Girish.
Thank you, Swati. I'm going to share my screen and confirm if you can see that.
Yes, we can see your screen.
Awesome. Good morning, good afternoon, and welcome once again to all the partners. We really appreciate everybody taking time off the busy schedule and joining us. These workshops won't be possible without your support. Also, as a follow-up, if you have any further clarification on the topics which we are discussing today, and any topic that you might be having in your mind related to Azure, you can always reach out to the team. We're going to share the email link at the end of this presentation. But yeah, any question that you might be having after this workshop, feel free to reach out to the Ingram Micro Azure team. Now, with the situation which Swati explained, Contoso Incorporation is encountered by a lot of organization. And literally speaking, they're looking for some sort of help. Now, I think after the adoption of virtualization technology in the early 2000, the biggest shift that is going to take place in the digital workspace is adoption of cloud technology. And that's where, as a partner, they can come and help these end customers in their cloud journey. Now, there are a lot of tools in the market which can come and assist. From the Microsoft perspective, we are talking about Azure migration services. Now, we do understand that there are a lot of heterogeneous environment. People, they have mix of Windows as well as Linux environment. They've also physical as well as adopted the virtualization technology. The good thing is that Azure migration services can cater to all these kind of different environment. And especially in today's when we are having a lot of discussion from the VMware perspective with a recent acquisition and recent licensing changes, we are hearing a lot from the partners that they're looking to change the platform. So if you're that kind of situation, please bring us in the conversation. But as I mentioned, regardless of environment, whether these are physical or virtualized, Azure Migration Services can cater to all these environments. But let me break this journey into three parts. Any migration, whether it's big or small, can be divided into three stages. In first stage, we are talking about discovery of your assets, which gives us the complete visibility of the inventory we are dealing with. Then, as you know, Microsoft Azure has different tiers and services which are there from cost can come from. And in the second phase, we are going to run the assessment across what we are dealing with from the inventory that has been in the first stage. And at this stage, we're going to pinpoint what should be the right nodes that we should be going and deploying on the Azure side. So assessment going to be critical, and this gives a detailed report of where these costs are coming from and can be spanned across 1 year, 3 year term. And also we can make utilize of different cost optimization tool, which are also available, which we're going to discuss later on in this workshop too. And finally, if it makes sense both operationally as well as financially, we can move to the last and the final stage, which is to move these workloads into Azure environment. But these are the typical scenarios which are typically associated with any cloud migration. And Azure Migration Services can help you end to end in order to achieve and move these workloads to cloud. And as Swati mentioned, you can develop these capability in-house, or you can also lean on our professional services to help you in your projects, and they are there to support you end to end in all these projects. So as mentioned that Contoso Incorporation has already gone through the assessment and there has been some recommendation. So let's try to price out this opportunity by going into the Azure pricing calculator. So at this stage, I'm going to flip my screen and going to the portal of pricing calculator. And by the way, this tool is generally available. So if you go and search for Azure pricing calculator, it will take you to this page. So as for this assessment, we are talking about two servers. One is AD and the other one is file services. So let's go and add one by one. You can go and personalize this estimate by also giving the name. Since we are talking about Contoso, I'm going to name this as a Contoso estimate. And then I can also specify the server that we are dealing with. So in this case, the first server that is going to assist is AD. So I'm going to name this as the Active Directory server. Then I'm going to pick my region of choice. Since we are talking about Canadian partners, so the most of the time we are going to pick from two. We have the central and the east. The central is in Toronto and the east is in Quebec City. For this example, I'm going to pick Canada Central, and it's going to be Windows operating system. And the machine which is going to be deployed is D1V2. So I'm going to pick that. And for this server, the storage which has been recommended is a regular spinning hard drive, which is 128 gig size. So I'm going to select under the manage disk that node and change the number of disks to 1. Similarly, they also have the file services. So I'm going to go and also add that. Pick my region, and the node recommended here is T2SV3. And for this, the storage recommended is a premium SSD, which is for 1 TB size. So let me go and add that. And at the bottom, I can always change the currency. So right now, by default, it is in USD. You can go and change in Canadian dollar. And you can always export this in an Excel sheet in case you need to share that with the end customer, because the price that you see is an end customer pricing. I can always save this for my future reference. And if you want, you can always go and create a link which can be shared with your end customer. But this is the way you're going to create estimate for most of the customers, and Azure Migrate, Azure Pricing Calculator is the tool typically we use in order to price out this opportunity. Now, having said that, we have priced out this opportunity. Now, what are the steps involved when it comes to deployment of these services? Now, for that, let me go and move to the Azure portal. So you can look, I can logged into portal.azure.com, and I have the admin privileges to this subscription. In order to find any services within Azure portal, you can go and search in the global search bar. Since in this case, we are talking about Azure Migrate, I can go and quickly search. Let's go and open that up. From the left side of the blade, I have the complete control depending upon what kind of assessment and migration I'm talking about. Now, in this case, for the Contoso, we are dealing with servers. So let me go and pick that. Any migration start with creating a project. So in this case, I can go and click on the Create Project button and start by filling up some basic information. For example, the name of my subscription. I can go and create a resource group, which is a logical container. You can give the project name and the geography that we are dealing with. Since we are talking about Canada, so I'm going to pick Canada in this case. And it's as simple as that, just clicking on the Create button, and this project will be up and running. Now, for this demonstration purposes, I've already created a project, which I'm going to, so you can see I have project listed with the name P101. So the first step after you have created this project is to discover your resources. And most of the time, you're going to use the appliances in order to do any of these projects. Now, depending upon what kind of environment you're catering to, as I mentioned, Azure Migration Services can cater to physical, virtualized, whether you're running Hyper-V, VMware, all those kind of environment. For this example, I'm going to use the VMware hypervisor. You can start by giving the name of the appliance. As part of the deployment, you need to download, you can download an OVA file, which can be deployed on a virtual machine. And then you can go through the process of setting up this appliance. So this appliance will be responsible for assessing your environment as well as doing the ultimate migration. But just let me show you what you can expect when you're trying to run these assessment. As you can see that in my case, I have discovered 10 servers. You can go and assess from the assess button. You can assess your VM, SQL, MySQL databases, app services, and even Azure VMware solution too. Now, I have created an assessment in which I have added just one machine, so you can group them based on your requirement. And since it is for Contoso Incorporation, I have named the group name as Contoso. So let me just open that up. This is the machine we are talking about, VM001 in this example, and you can see that these are 4 cores with 4 gig of RAM with 1 disk attached with a 128 gig of storage. I can go and click on the View Assessment button. And this is the machine we are talking about, Demo Contoso. I'm going to go and open that up. And in this view, you get the complete visibility of what is the Azure readiness. Is this machine is ready to move to the cloud or not? So you'll get that information. So I got the green check mark. It means everything look good for me. Then you also get the breakdown of your monthly cost, which is divided into compute as well as storage. And then I can also go and drill down more into the cost detail by going into the cost detail button. And in this view, I get the exact node size that I should be deploying for this machine, which is on-prem. So in this case, we are talking about standard A4V2 machine. And you can see the Azure readiness, the size of the machine, the compute cost going to be close to $300. And the storage cost in this case is 967. That's where my majority of the cost is going to come from. And you can further see the breakdown over here. The size of the storage I see is close to 8 terabyte in this case. So this is how you can go and assess your environment. Again, as I mentioned, you can cater to physical, virtualized, any kind of these environment. And once you feel comfortable with the cost and if your servers actually support migration, you can move to the next phase, which is to actually migrate these machines into Azure. So with this, we have successfully assessed and migrated our machines into Azure for Contoso incorporation, and they're very satisfied with this move. So at this stage, we have completed scenario number one. Now we are going to move to scenario number two, which Swati is going to explain further.
Thank you, Girish. So let me read out the customer scenario 2. Northwind Traders is an investment company with multiple branches in different countries. They have adopted hybrid deployment model. As a part of the cloud adoption, they have moved some of their critical workloads to Azure, which includes storage accounts and compute VMs. As a part of the requirement, they need to be PCI DSS compliant and protect their storage from malware attack. They have decided to adopt MS Defender for cloud for 3 storage accounts and 11 VMs. Over to you, Girish.
Thank you, Swati. Now, this is another great scenario because nowadays you cannot have any cloud discussion without security implication and compliance perspective. And especially if you're dealing with regulated industry, whether it's a financial sector, health industry, or even government entity, compliance and security is in top of everybody's mind. And when you add the mix of hybrid deployment, there are some more challenges associated with that. Now, the good thing is that in this case, Northwind Traders obviously is looking to do hybrid deployment, but they want to make sure that their workloads as well as the data stored in their storage account is protected. And because they come from the financial background, they want to make sure that their environment is also compliant. In this case, we are talking about payment card industry, which is a pretty common compliance protocol required for any financial sector. So let's look into how Defender for Cloud can help in order to secure the environment. So first of all, Defender for Cloud is a cloud native application protection platform. In the recent years, there has been a lot of changes for good. Defender for Cloud has added a lot of workloads in its portfolio. But there is also some confusion from the fact that there has been some name changes which Microsoft has done. It used to be called Security Center before, which used to come in the tier of free and standard. Now they have rebranded this as Defender for Cloud, which again comes in a free as well as paid tier. And some of the paid tiers are associated with the workloads that you see on this slide. Now, starting with the compute, you can go and protect your workloads, whether it's Windows or Linux based, along with virtual machine scale set. You can also use Defender for Cloud to protect your app services as well as Kubernetes. Then also specific services such as databases and storage, whether you're dealing with Azure SQL, MySQL, PostgreSQL, and also specific databases like Cosmos DB as well as Maria database is also protected by utilizing Defender for Cloud. But the flexibility of this comes from the fact that people who are dealing with hybrid deployment, or even if you have sites in a third-party cloud, whether they are sitting in AWS or GCP, you can use Microsoft Defender for Cloud in order to protect all these different sites, which are sometime from the management perspective can be challenging, and from the administrative perspective, they might have to deal these in silos. With Defender for Cloud, you get one single pane of glass, which brings all these different sites under one umbrella, and you can protect that from one admin console. Now, in this case, not when traders specifically, they have a specific requirement because they are trying to protect 11 machines or virtual machines. Now, Defender for Server can be further divided into two plans. You have Plan 1 and Plan 2. Both these plans are priced based on how many servers we are trying to protect and for how long these services are running. As you can see on the screen, that Plan 2 gives you more holistic view and more security capabilities. For example, if you compare that with the Plan 1, Plan 2 has specific features such as adaptive network hardening. Uh, Most of the time, if you look at bad actors, they try to get into your machines through the management ports, whether these are port 22 or port 3389. With just-in-time VM access, you can able to control and manage these ports. You can manage this in a way that you can open this port only during specific hours. So the administrator can do their work, and once that time is over, then that management port is automatically closed. You can also give them access from specific IP addresses of specific virtual networks, so give you better control over who and at what time people can access to do the administrative work in case they have to do it. And also specific features such as file integrity monitoring, which is, by the way, is a requirement in case you want your environment to be PCI compliant. Through file integrity monitoring, you can keep a track of any operating system changes or registry changes which is happening, so that relevant people can monitor this accordingly. And in case you see any diversion happening, you can create workflows in your environment, so the administrator will receive emails, or you can also have integration maybe of function apps or some other services within your Azure environment. But a great way of managing your resources. Plus, on top of this, you also get XDR capability, which is built in. So in case you want to have real-time threat detection, that's also part of these plans too. But you have two options to choose from, Plan 1 and Plan 2. But as I mentioned, Plan 2 gives you more holistic control and view of across your workloads, whether they're sitting in Azure or on-prem or even in third-party cloud. Now, they also have some critical data sitting in storage accounts, and specifically, they have three storage accounts that they want to protect. Now, when it comes to storage within Azure, it's one of the most popular services and the first services typically which people they start with. And storage in Azure comes in different forms and shapes. You might have heard about some of them. For example, if you're dealing with storage attached to your virtual machine instances, we are talking about page blob storage. Then you have the block blob storage, which you typically associated with any structured or unstructured data that can be stored in this kind of storage. File share storage, which are typically replica of your file shares or the file servers that you typically associate with in your on-prem environment. It supports both SMB as well as NFS kind of file share. Or if you're dealing with the big data analytics and you want to store a massive amount of data, then we are talking about ADLS, or also known as Azure Data Lake Storage. Gen 2 is the latest one right now. Now, the good thing is that with the Defender for Storage plan, you can go and enable this through one click. So you don't need to do complex configuration. So one-click enablement, and you'll be able to protect all these different resources within the storage account. You can detect the threats in case you see any activities which are not standard. A security alert obviously can be sent to an administrator, and you can automate the response, whether you want to run maybe a logic app in order to mitigate that, or you can also send the logs from Defender for Storage right into the Sentinel, which is a SIEM and a source solution. But all these capabilities are built in within your Defender for Storage plan. And whether it's your Defender for server plans, or whether it's Defender for storage, or even if you're running databases in your environment, you can go and secure it all by utilizing Defender for Cloud. So how much this service is going to cost for Northwind traders? For that, let me again go back to the pricing calculator and show you where you can price this opportunity. So I'm going to open a new tab for this. And because this is again, I can go and search for any product over here. Like in this case, we are talking about Defender. So let's go and search for it. I can go and pick it from here. I can go and click on the view button. Now I can pick the region of my choice, which is Canada Central again. And because we are talking about specific resources, I'm going to pick cloud workload protection in this case. So our recommendation for Northwind traders is to pick server plan 2 because of the reasons which I told you, because as I mentioned, it gives you more holistic protection across your workload. And in this case, we are dealing with the 11 machines. So I'm going to pick that. 730 hours are the typical hours on an average in a month, so that's there by default. But just to point out that if our machines are deallocated during certain times of the day or during the week, you won't get charged for that plan. But I'm going to use the full 730 hours, which is on an average in a month. And then they also have storage account, which I'm going to also pick. So in this case, we are talking about 3 storage accounts. So let's pick that. And there are two components to storage accounts. So one thing is that how many storage accounts we are trying to protect, and also in case you want to enable malware scanning based on how much data the storage account or this service is going to scan, you'll be charged for this. For the example, I'm going to pick, let's say, 500 gig. And again, I can go and change the currency from USD to Canadian dollar. So with this, I have the price for this opportunity. I have Defender for Cloud for storage for this opportunity, as well as I've also added Defender for Server Plan 2 to protect these 3 machines. Again, I can go and also give the name here for Northwind Trader just to make it much more personal. Again, I can export this in an Excel sheet and share that with the end customer. So with this, let's go to the Azure portal and see where we can go and spin up these services. For that, let's go back to the pricing to the Azure portal. And let me just close the first option. Now, again, I can go and search in the global search bar for this services, or the other option is that I can go under all services. And because this is a security product, I can go and go under the security category. And here I can do a quick search, or if you go and just search for Defender for Cloud, you can go and find it over here. You also see you see the star icon over here. If I just click and highlight this, you can always pin that under the favorite button. But let's go and expand this. So I'm on the Defender for Cloud overview page, and this gives you a bird's eye view of what's happening across your various sites, whether it's sitting in Azure or in different clouds or even on-prem. So in this case, Northwind Trader, as I mentioned, has got hybrid environment. So they can also bring their workloads which are on-prem and bring to the fold of Defender for Cloud. And you can see, and as I mentioned, that Defender for Clouds comes in 2 flavors. Out of the box, you get free flavor for which you don't get any charge, which give you the security posture or security score. So you can see at this stage right now, I've got 17%. But as I go and implement the recommendation made by Defender for Cloud, the secure score will go up. Higher the secure score is better for your company. It means that you are implementing all the recommendation by this security tool. But in order to implement workload specific Defender for cloud services, I can go and under management, I can go under environment settings. and scroll down. Now, in my case, I only have one subscription running, so let me go and expand this. And from here, I can enable resource-specific Defender for cloud services. Now we are dealing with Defender for server, so you can see that it's in off state right now. I can click on the on button, and by default, it picks the plan 2, but I can come to the change plan button, and I can always flip between plan 2 and plan 1. But you can see what is covered under plan 2, and this is all based on per instance. But if required, I can always flip the button and change that to plan 1. And these are the things that will be covered in your plan. But my suggestion is Plan 2 gives you far more security. And because they want to be compliant in specific compliance protocols such as PCI, they need to be enabled for file integrity monitoring, which is included also in Defender for Server Plan 2. So this is how you're going to enable Defender for Server Plan in this case, right? Let me just come out of this. Now you can also go and enable Defender for storage from here, but let me show you another option. But before I do that, because they need to be payment card industry compliant, you can always come under the security policy. By default, you get information about Microsoft Cloud Security, as you can see, right? But a lot of companies, they have to adhere depending upon which industry they're coming from. You can also go and analyze your environment based on specific compliance. You can see that I'm in off state right now, but you can go and enable your subscription for this compliance, and it's going to analyze your environment and create a detailed report for you. Optionally, if you want, you can also create your own custom standard by inputting specific recommendations. So you can go and create your standard from here. You can add recommendations and how you want compliance to look like in your environment. So that option is available for you too. But let me just share a quick report, what you get through this tool. So this is just a random report that we have created, which is Defender for Cloud. You can see it's a PCI DSS, which Northwind Traders requires. And in this report, you get an executive summary of how your subscription looks like against this standard. And then it also make recommendation for you whether you failed in any control or passed in any control. And this is a great way of sharing with the concerned authorities or any compliance officer that might be requiring this specific report. So great way of, because what I've seen in actually in environment and dealing with SMB class customers, in most of the cases, if you look at the technical bench, you have the same person who is managing your Azure resources, and they're donning different hats, right? He can be a security administrator, he can be also a compliance officer. And as an administrator, you may or may not know different compliance requirement based on the industry that you're trying to adhere to. So I will say, let the tool do the job for you, and Defender for Cloud can definitely help in achieving those compliance requirements that your company might be having. Going back to the portal, as I mentioned, let me also show you another way of enabling Defender for Cloud for storage specifically. So in this case, I'm going to go to individual storage account. So for this example, I have a couple of, as you can see here, let's take the example of BAB US, and I can go and enable Defender for storage at the resource level too. So you can see under security and networking, I can go and enable by highlighting Defender for Cloud, and just a one-click enablement. You can see by default, it picks both options, sensitive data threat protection as well as malware scanning. But in this case, you can always go and tweak it as per your environment. But once you click on enable on storage account, your storage account will be automatically protected, and then you can always create a workflow, what actions you want in case any activities which is out of normal is detected against the storage accounts. So great way of protecting your assets and achieving compliance. So with this, we have successfully priced out Northwind traders and also shown you the deployment steps. I'm going to go back to the slide and go to the final scenario, which is for Woodgrove Bank.
Thank you, Girish. Team, feel free to put your questions in the chat. Girish can take it at the end. So let's look at customer scenario 3. Woodgrove Bank, with over 300 employees, provides financial solutions for their large customer base. They have 200 mortgage agents and 100 engineers. Mortgage agents requires access to customized applications to perform their daily work. On the other hand, engineering team also need access to specific applications. They currently provide virtual desktops using remote desktop services for all their employees. Due to infrastructure challenges and server renewal coming up, they're exploring options to replace aging RDS environment and looking at AVD to solve critical challenges related to security and cost. After running tests with their IT team internally, they have shared the following requirements. So they have mortgage agents, which requires pooled deployment for their 200 light users. And for support engineers, they also need pooled deployment for 100 medium users, and a total storage required for user profiles is 1 TB. Over to you,
Thank you.
Girish.
Thank you, Swati. So this is another great case scenario, and one of the most popular services with our end customers and partners. And if you remember, during the COVID situation, a lot of companies, they were not able to provide access to the workforce because, first of all, obviously, because of the lockdown, people, they were not able to go to their offices. So the companies, they didn't have the means to support remote workforce. So a lot of companies, that's why went bankrupt. And even though in some cases people they thought they have all the tools necessary to provide and give access, they were not able to do that in a secured manner. And that's when the VDI services and specifically Azure Virtual Desktop became so popular and continue to be so as we talk today. But there can be many reasons why people they are looking to move their workloads and specifically these RDS services or applications to the cloud. In this case, as you can see for Woodgrove Bank, the driving force is that their server is coming for renewal, and from the security perspective, they are not able to achieve those standards that the company that typically wants to associate it with. But having said that, they also have specific requirements, right? So in this case, we are dealing with different classes of employees. They have a mix of mortgage agents as well as support engineers. And all these people, they have different requirements. From mortgage agent perspective, we are talking about not compute intensive workloads. So these are 200 in total. So these are termed as light user. Where support engineers, they need a little bit more compute. So we are dealing with a little bit more robust workloads. And the number of workloads the number of support engineers we are talking about is 100 in this case. Also for user profiling, they have this requirement of 1 terabyte in total across mortgage agent as well as support engine. So what's RDS services and how it is different from what we have been deploying on-prem or even in cloud? So let me first say that a lot of people, they are still utilizing remote desktop services. Now, when I say remote desktop services, I'm talking about traditionally the way we have been deploying these workloads, whether it's on-prem and cloud. And even in Azure, if you look at a lot of people, they are still utilizing this and they've been pretty successful. But since we are talking about cloud, there might be a modern way of deploying these resources. And if you look at any remote desktop infrastructure, typically as an administrator, you have to deal with different server roles. We are talking about connection broker, we are talking about gateway, licensing server, web access, all these things typically as an administrator or as a partner, you need to manage and control it. Now, when it comes to Azure Virtual Desktop, most of these server workloads are taken care by Microsoft in the backend. The advantage of this, you can just focus on the applications and maybe the session host within the host pool. Other things, as I mentioned, all these things, typical server roles will be taken care by Microsoft for you. Also, on top of that, when we're talking about remote desktop services and we're talking about multi-sessions, we need to store user profiles somewhere. So for that, we can use Azure Files, which is again a platform as a service. From the administrative perspective, you don't need to worry about scalability. It comes in different tiers. You can pick from standard, hard, premium tiers, and you can also use in certain cases even third-party solutions like NetApp files. But behind the scene, the technology which is helped to segregate all these user profiles is FS Logics. So that is also part of the complete mix. But the idea is that if you're moving towards Azure Virtual Desktop, we want to use modern authentication such as Entra ID, which used to be called Azure Active Directory before. This way, we can concentrate more on the application and its deployment rather than the server role and other administrative work, which we typically associated with our on-prem deployment. So let's talk about Azure Resource Manager model when it comes from the AVD perspective. As you know, Azure Resource Manager is the deployment and the control plane. And if you've been dealing with Azure services previously, we used to deploy through classic model. Now, when you had this experience of classic model, the management was not that great because all these different resources that got deployed needs to be managed in silos. With Azure Resource Manager, it gives us complete control, and this can be managed through different ways. We can go and manage that through Azure Portal, through REST API, or even through PowerShell. But a great way of managing your resources and the modern way of giving you complete control. And under the Azure Resource Manager sits the subscription, which is nothing but a billing entity. That's where the cost is going to come from when you go and deploy the resources in your subscription. When we talk about from the CSV perspective, we are talking about NCE or New Commerce Experience subscription. But there are different subscription which are available from Microsoft. It can be pay as you go, EA, also that you might have heard about. But since we are talking about partners, we are talking about NC subscription here. And you might be in a situation in which you are an MSP or managed service provider and you have to manage multiple tenants. So rather than providing and logging into each and every tenant with your credential, you can manage all these different tenants through your own tenant by utilizing of Azure Lighthouse, giving you better control and visibility across multiple tenants that you might be managing. Now, from the AVD perspective, there are certain terminology that you might come across. For example, with host pool, which is nothing but a collection of your Azure virtual machines which are registered to AVD services. Now you can divide host pools into two categories. You have personal and you have pool kind of work host pool. In personal host pool, you have a one-to-one relationship in which every user has its own dedicated machine. Whereas in a pooled environment, multiple users can access the same session host, which is nothing but an Azure virtual machine. But typically, you're dealing with two kind of host pool. Now, what kind of host pool you want to use will be important consideration when it comes to architecting your AVD deployment. So one of the important component of AVD services. Then you have application group, which is a logical grouping of your application. And very similar to host pool, it also can be divided into two categories. You have a desktop application group in which you have given full desktop experience to your users or groups. Or you can also have a remote application group in which you can give individual application access to specific users in your environment. And then finally, you have the workspaces, which is nothing but logical grouping of your application group. Every application group needs to be associated with a workspace so that the user who has been given access, whether it's a desktop application group or a remote application group, they can go and see and access these. So workspace needs to be created also when you go and implement AVD services. But this is on a high level, what we call the object model when it comes to related to Azure Virtual Desktop. Now, since in this case, Woodgrove Bank has a specific requirement, one for the mortgage agent and other for the support engineer, let's look at how to price this out from the pricing calculator. So I'm going to go back again. And you can find the services under the compute button, or you can again go and search it over here. Since we are dealing with Azure Virtual Desktop, let's go and pick this and click on the view button. I'm going to pick my region of choice. And for this example, I'm utilizing for mortgage agent. I can go and name it as for mortgage agent workload. Virtual desktop type in this case going to be pooled, but as I mentioned, you can give a dedicated machine, which is going to be part of the personal. But in this case, we are dealing with pooled, so I'm going to pick pooled in this case. And the workload type is a light, so it means that they don't need much compute intensive workload, but you can see that you can pick from light, medium, and heavy in power. This translates into what kind of compute in terms of CPU and RAM you want to provision for your users. I'm going to pick constant availability in this case, but you can also scale this environment too. And specifically mortgage agents, the number given by the Woodrow Bank is 200, so I'm going to pick that. So 200 light users, assuming that they're running 24/7. And the recommended number of instances here, and it's a D4S V5 machine, which is automatically populated here. And I can always pick between saving plan and reservation to keep the cost down. And the other cost, which is going to come from the storage. So in this case, the recommendation is that we're going to use standard HDD, and it's going to be 128 gigs. So I'm going to pick that. And for storing your user profiles, I'm going to pick premium file storage, but you can also pick Azure Native files. You have all the options available for you. But in this example, I'm going to pick a premium file storage. And let's go and change it to 1 terabyte. There's going to be always cost related to the bandwidth. So in cloud, as you know, egress charges are also applied. So that needs to be taken into perspective. That will depend upon what tier we are in. But I'm going to leave all these things to the default, and that's the cost you typically get when it comes to your Azure resources. Just want to quickly point out when it comes to AVD services, there are two cost components. One thing is the cost of the Azure resources that you see, and the other cost is going to come from the licensing. So that's one of the prerequisites that you need to have. You can always reach out to our licensing team to give you information about that. But the cost that we are talking about is only specifically for Azure resources over here. You can again save it, you can share it with your end customer, you can export it in an Excel sheet. All these things are possible. So with that, let's go to the Azure portal and try to search for Azure Virtual Desktop. I'm going to go and highlight this. The first thing you need to do, so first of all, from the left side of the blade, you get the complete control, how you want to manage the service. You have the host pool, application group, workspace, the things that we discussed. But let's go and create a host pool here. You can start with filling up information such as subscription, what resource group you want to create it under it. You need to give it a host pool name and the location. You can go and pick what kind of app group type you want, desktop or a remote app. I'm going to pick the default and the host pool type in this case, whether it's going to be pooled or personal. The chances are most of the time we're going to go and deploy in a pooled environment, but again, you have this flexibility of giving a dedicated machine, or you can have multiple users access a single instance too. Then other specific things which get deployed in the backend is the load balancing algorithm. You can pick from depth first or breadth first. By default, it's breadth first, which works on a round robin basis, but you can also pick depth first, in which your single session host will be saturated before any new connection is passed on to a new machine. You can also specify maximum session limit if you want. Then you can also specify if you want to add the virtual machine right from when you go and create this host pool. Here you can specify what kind of virtual machine and compute power you want. You also see the option of virtual machine type, right? Whether it's going to be deployed in Azure or Azure local virtual machine. Now, this thing we have not discussed, but this will come into play in case you want to go and deploy AVD services in your on-prem data center. And yes, you heard it right. You can go and deploy AVD services. Microsoft has changed the name. It used to be called Azure Stack at CI. They have rebranded this as Azure Local Virtual Machine. So maybe in a scenario in which, because of the compliance region, you can deploy these workloads into Azure, you can go and deploy this in your own data center on the hardware of your choice. You can go and procure that from HPs, the Dells, the Lenovo's. There are different options available, but that's what it is talking about here. Then you can go and also apply different redundancy options through availability zones. You can create your own image, customized image, and create these machines from here. So all these capabilities are there, right, as you can see. So once you go and deploy these services, you can share the link with your end customer. They can go and provide the credential, and you can combine all the security capabilities, whether these are multi-factor authentication, a conditional access policy, all that modern security implementation can be blended in with Azure Virtual Desktop. But this is how you're going to go and deploy. So in this case, Woodgrove Bank was successful in deploying these resources in Azure Virtual Desktop, both for their support engineers as well as their mortgage agents, and they are quite happy with the service now. All right, so going back to the slide deck, let's look at what are the options available from the cost optimization perspective. So we have discussed, right, different scenarios and how you can move these workloads into the cloud. But in the end of the day, people, they are not going to move their workloads into cloud if it doesn't make sense financially. So cost is an important factor when you're trying to whether you're born in the cloud, so Azure native, or you're migrating your resources from on-prem or from third-party cloud. Azure offers a lot of cost optimization. For example, you can go and right-size your virtual machine. This is part of the migrate assessment, which we discussed. You can avail reserve instances as well as saving plan. You can pick one over the other, or you can use combination of both in order to keep your cost down by picking between 1 year and 3 year plan. If you have on-prem software assurance, you can always avail hybrid benefit and keep the cost down because, as you know, on the cloud by default, your licensing will be included when we talk about the Windows Server or SQL Server. But in case you have software assurance, you can always avail that. And then you can always make use of spot instances. Now, this is a niche scenario in case you're dealing with the test and dev kind of environment. You can save up to 80% off as compared to pay as you go. And then you can use automation as well as some other capabilities, maybe transitioning from IaaS to PaaS to keep the cost down. But all these capabilities are there for you from the cost optimization perspective. So with this, I'm going to hand over to Swati to take it forward and also talk about some of the promotions, incentives which are there for you. Over to you, Swati.
Sorry, I had some trouble unmuting myself. Thank you, Girish. So, team, I just wanted to highlight about the partner frequency incentive program that we currently are running. So, every new customer that you add for Azure, even if it is a cross sell opportunity from Modern Work or Dynamics, but a new customer to Azure, their second month's consumption will be covered up to $10,000. So you just have to scan this QR code that you see on the screen and enroll yourself. There is a memorandum of understanding that you need to sign as an organization, and that holds for the that holds good for the next 3 years. So feel free to reach out to me or Girish if you have any questions. I hope this session was really beneficial. Uh, we can take some questions now. So Girish, we do have one question in the chat. Is AVD a viable solution for engineering clients that require resource-heavy apps like AutoCAD and large CAD files in Azure files?
That's a great question. So first of all, the short answer is yes. And why you can use AVD for this kind of workload. So first of all, in case you're dealing with the AutoCAD kind of workloads, you need to have pretty, powerful compute engine or dedicated graphic cards. So first of all, when we talk about Azure, depending upon the data center we are dealing with, Microsoft offers different compute powers, right? And typically, when we are dealing with this kind of scenario, specifically animation or AutoCAD designing and development, we are talking about N series machines. Now, one decision one has to make that do you want to give a dedicated machine or is it okay to share between multiple users? So the thing that I talked about between pool and personal desktop. But yeah, definitely you can make use of these machines, specifically N-series machine in AVD scenario for clients which have to do engineering drawing, AutoCAD designing. A lot of our customers are already utilizing this and they're pretty successful in it.
Is there any other questions? You can also unmute yourself and ask a question.
As I mentioned before, to everybody, right, in case you don't want to ask any question or maybe you have any opportunity, you can always reach out to us, right? We are more than happy to assist you in your cloud journey. And you can always utilize our professional services too in case you want to do these projects till you build upon your capabilities when it comes to managing these projects end to end. So that incentive and that team is there for you. You can always make use of it.
Thank you all
So
for joining today's Azure Envision workshop. If you have any questions, please reach out to Girish or Swati, and they will definitely be happy to help. Once again, thank you all for joining, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you, everyone.
thank you.
Thank you.